Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hi, welcome to the 28th session in the course HRM for non-HR managers. With this session, we enter the 10th and last week of this course. In the 26th session, as part of our discussion on HR scorecard, knowledge management appeared as a part of internal process perspective for an organization which aspired to excel in customer service and be a preferred employer, arguably for the top talent. In this session, we are going to discuss knowledge management and learning organization and how they link up with effective human resource management. Let us check the introduction first. After agricultural revolution bringing in the civilized societies and industrial revolution introducing the society to the modern world, knowledge revolution is often recognized as the third major revolution characterized by information and communication technology and cloud-based high-speed computing as the revolution unfolds. Learning and knowledge are both used in our daily language. When brought to the domain of management, their meaning changes. Knowledge, as defined by Plato, was that it is a justified belief. Davenport and Prusak argued that knowledge is a pool of contextual qualities and experiences which set the basis for processing data. Runar Edwardson defines knowledge management as a process of developing, sharing and applying knowledge within the firm to obtain and sustain competitive advantage. In the domain of management, not the knowledge itself, but its management is also highlighted. A dictionary meaning of learning given by Merriam-Webster, for example, is knowledge or skill acquired by instruction or study, people of good education and considerable learning. Oxford Dictionary defines learning as the activity of obtaining knowledge. However, in the management context, the most widely quoted textbook definition of learning is a change in behavior that is due to experience. This definition has evolved out of research of scholars such as Skinner and Thorndike. You should not be surprised then that knowledge in the context of management is not just about what, which renders facts, or about why, which is science. When you discuss or learn what or why about any subject without extending the learning to how, you may have obtained information about the subject, but you may not have the complete knowledge about how the things work in practice or how to use the facts and science in service of people's needs. A gap between know what or know why and know how is known as the knowing-doing gap. For organizations, knowledge is a key source which can translate intellectual asset into service or a group of services in the form of a product. A product which competitors cannot copy will give an organization a competitive advantage over them. Knowledge of what, why and how is necessary for developing that advantage. So it is for the competitor as well. In order to survive in a fast-moving world where new technology is invented or developed every now and then, it will be hard to survive without developing and managing knowledge which will be a source of competitive advantage. For example, Nokia, which was a pioneer in making mobile phones in the beginning, could not keep up with the designs of phones which could support smartphones and lost its top position to a number of companies which learned fast. A company may have a database of feedback from customers and employees and shares this feedback with their design and research and development departments. All members of the organization would be able to enter feedback into database and an integrated approach would be taken to understanding the shared information. Project files, generated as an employee team works collaboratively on a project can be shared. They have a system of shared files and information that allows everyone on the team to upload and comment on work performed by others. A company developing a new product conducts research on their competitors and conducts focus groups to find out what is needed in their product or market niche. This information is entered into a database that contains objective data on market sales potential and indicates what assets and processes the company has in place which can be used to meet this sales potential, meet customer needs and fill gaps within the marketplace. As you can see, gaining or applying knowledge is impossible without learning. One fact is that the knowledge by default resides in the individuals. When changes are happening at a large scale and high speed, learning by one individual may not be enough or stable. When individuals leave the organization, the knowledge which was at least in part an asset of the organization leaves too. For complex processes starting from product design to its manufacturing would require an entire organization to learn. Knowledge and learning are inextricably related. The process of learning generates knowledge. Learning connects with existing knowledge. Sometimes new learning enhances existing knowledge. Sometimes existing knowledge blocks new learning. Hence, the HRM process should facilitate knowledge management and organizational learning in a harmonious manner and in the interest of the organization strategy. HRM can and should actively build and support culture and systems which enable the organizational learning and management of knowledge. If you remember, in the early sessions, we mentioned the 4 roles of an HR manager. Taking an active part in business strategy formulation and acting as an agent of change are 2 roles which encourage an HR manager to participate in managing learning and knowledge at the level of individual, team and organization. Management of knowledge. Knowledge management faces a challenge because of the fact that knowledge exists in the human mind and the person who possesses it may not be conscious of it. Do we know that we know? For example, a person may not know how bold he or she is until they face a situation which brings out and tests their bravery or otherwise. Even when we are conscious of our knowledge, we find it difficult to express it in explicit and clear terms. For example, in a meeting, if a junior executive knows that the decision taken by the senior is ineffective, he or she may not find effective words to express why they think so. Some knowledge which may be clearly expressed would be limited in its validity within a specific context. For example, a manager who is very bold and aggressive at work may not know how to assert himself at home before his angry wife. According to Odell and Jackson, knowledge management is a conscious strategy of getting the right knowledge to the right people at the right time and helping people share and put information into action in ways that help improve organizational performance. That was in 1998. We will now explore the reasons for emphasis on knowledge management. The need to focus on managing knowledge within organization results from economic and market-driven conditions created by customer demand and global competition. Loss of knowledge of organization because of increased employee turnover or organizational forgetting through misplaced records. Leakage of knowledge to the competitors. Organizations could be interested in managing knowledge for several benefits, which include to remain competitive and innovative by creating intangible assets such as patents, to build a pool of organizational knowledge including the record of failures so that past mistakes are not repeated, to repeat the processes which resulted in successful projects, to facilitate multidisciplinary knowledge to reduce cycle times, for example, the time from design to development of prototype product by involving teams of members from different backgrounds. Realizing the benefits of knowledge management would require paying close attention to the types of knowledge. According to Nonaka, there are two types of knowledge. First is explicit, which is in the form of clearly spelled out words and numbers. It involves rationality and therefore it is also the knowledge of the mind. Since the words and numbers can be documented and shared across time, explicit knowledge is sequential and relatively free of the context. The second type is tacit, which exists but it cannot be verbalized or put in the form of numbers. This is a subjective and simultaneous type of knowledge in the here and now, which is body based and involves understanding of the context. The example of explicit knowledge is a spreadsheet containing year-wise information from the profit and loss account of an organization. As long as reading and analyzing that spreadsheet follows the principles defined in accounting and finance management, it can be done in any context in a rational manner, one number at a time or one ratio or one cluster of ratios at a time. A famous example of tacit knowledge is kneading the dough for bread. The Japanese company Matsushita wanted to make a machine for making the dough for the bread at home, but it could not take down the recipe of kneading. The trouble was not everything about the process of kneading could be written down in the recipe. The member of the product designing team actually interned with one of the best chefs of the bread and transferred the observational and experiential learning of the movement of the chef into product design, which later got patented. Thus, when the knowledge flows from one employee to another, it can be from explicit or tacit pool of knowledge of the sharing person, and it can go into the explicit or tacit pool of knowledge of the receiving person. A visual representation of this process can make it easy to understand, as you can see on your screens now. In this widely popular figure, based on the research by Nonaka, we can see horizontal and vertical axes. On the horizontal axis, we have the word to, and on the vertical axis, we have the word from. The word from suggests the person from whom the knowledge is transferred, and the word to suggests the person to whom the knowledge is transferred. At both the ends, we see both the types of knowledge, that is tacit and explicit. When the tacit knowledge of the sender is received by the recipient in a tacit manner, the organizational process which comes into picture is socialization. Socialization helps transfer of tacit knowledge to tacit knowledge of the receiver. Next, we have the process of articulation, which plays a key role in transfer of tacit knowledge to the explicit knowledge of the receiver. Next, we have the process of combination, where the sender's explicit knowledge gets into the explicit knowledge of the receiver. And finally, we have the process of internalization, where explicit knowledge of the sender becomes a part of tacit knowledge of the receiver. Nonaka and Takeuchi described the spiral of knowledge in which tacit knowledge is transferred to another person in tacit form, but then it is translated into explicit knowledge via communication, by which the organization's knowledge base grows even broader. The flow of knowledge within an organization is in the forms described next. First, from tacit to tacit flow of knowledge occurs when an employee learns by observing, imitating and practicing, or becomes socialized into a specific way of doing things and learns from mentors and peers. Knowledge is not explicit in this stage. Secondly, from explicit to explicit flow is where the employee combines separate pieces of explicit knowledge into a new whole, like using numerous data sources to write a financial report. Thirdly, from tacit to explicit flow of knowledge involves record, discussions, descriptions and innovations in a manual, and then using that content to create a new product. Converting tacit knowledge into explicit knowledge means finding a way to express the inexpressible. That was in the words of Stewart. To illustrate, moving from tacit to explicit involves stating one's vision of the world and what it is and what it should be. In the fourth place, from explicit to tacit flow involves reframing or interpreting explicit knowledge using a person's frame of reference so that knowledge can be understood and then internalized or accepted by others. A person's unique tacit knowledge can be applied in creative ways to broaden, extend or reframe a specific idea. Tacit knowledge does not become part of a person's knowledge base until it is articulated and internalized. Organizational learning for knowledge management. Learning at organizational level provides a bridge between the knowledge of individuals and the organization's effectiveness. Lopez and Associates defined organizational learning as a dynamic process of creation, acquisition and integration of knowledge for the development of capabilities which lead to a better organizational performance. Denisi and Associates corroborated that when organizational learning is continuous, it cannot be imitated by competitors. A learning organization can transform itself. A learning organization is open to learning not just internally from the experiences of its employees, but also from customers. You may have heard or used Canva. It is an online platform which allows users to create graphic communications, for example, posters, brochures and cards. Canva's knowledge management makes it easy to access the basics on getting started or when something isn't working. However, they also offer something unique. They allow customers to suggest different features. Canva understands that customers interact with their product and website the most. They are a wealth of information when it comes to what Canva can develop and improve on. By giving customers a voice, Canva gains a valuable opportunity to learn from their customers and improve their business process as a whole. Not only that, Canva's knowledge management comes with a thorough sidebar of information with simple titles and well-designed organization methods centered around creating designs, account basics, and using Canva for work. A learning organization is characterized by more and more of its knowledge getting stored into organizational memory, which resides in its way of performing routine tasks, regulations and procedures, documentation and culture. We will now explore the role of technology in the management of knowledge and learning organization. The goals of knowledge management can be understood as identify critical knowledge, acquire critical knowledge in a knowledge base or organizational memory, share the stored knowledge, apply the knowledge to appropriate situations, determine the effectiveness of using the applied knowledge, adjust knowledge use to improve effectiveness. Imagine a large organization with years of history and experience of successful and unsuccessful execution of projects and activities. It would have a large amount of knowledge of both types, tacit and explicit. It is impossible to leverage that knowledge effectively without the use of technology, which would help in codifying, pooling and sharing of the knowledge as well as monitoring and evaluating its use. Alavi and Leidner in the year 2001 defined knowledge management system as IT-based systems developed to support and enhance the organizational process of knowledge creation, storage or retrieval, transfer and application. Information and communication technology or ICT is an enabler of functions of knowledge creation, construction, identification, capturing, acquisition, selection, valuation, organization, linking, structuring, formalization, visualization, distribution, retention, maintenance, refinement, evolution, accessing, search and application. How HRM can encourage organizational learning and knowledge management? That is a relevant question. HRM manager plays a very important role in creating and sustaining learning organizations where knowledge is created, pooled, shared and applied for organizational effectiveness. As you remember from the early sessions, the functions of HRM include recruitment and selection, training and development, performance management and career planning. Each of these functions can be designed to include the learning and knowledge management related goals and needs of the organization. As discussed in one of our earlier sessions, HR plays 4 major roles as classified by David Ulrich. From among those roles, HR as a strategic partner and as a change agent are relevant here. In order to shape the organization into a learning organization, the HR must obtain commitment from the top management and engagement from the middle management. The Strategic Human Resource Management Organization or SHRM also recommends that the HR managers realize that the people learn differently and at different pace. Therefore, multiple learning platforms should be offered to employees and the platforms should be integrated. Examples of learning platforms are ready to deliver or off-the-shelf programs and custom-made learning programs. In terms of the functions of HRM, here is how HR can play a proactive role in organizational learning and management of knowledge. 1. While recruiting, testing and selecting the potential employees, observe whether the employees have keenness for learning and sharing. Specific abilities listed by Nonaka, which include articulation, combination and internalization, should be searched for. The methods of employee testing and selection should be designed such that they incorporate these search elements. Second, process of socialization, onboarding, mentoring and coaching should be taken seriously, and employees should be assigned senior mentors and coaches who devote adequate time in ensuring that their junior colleagues learn from them. Those one-to-one programs should be made rewarding for both the participants, the learner and the mentor. Third, along with performance goals, the learning and knowledge related goals should be clearly communicated and built into performance management system. One way of doing so is by defining the behaviors associated with learning and knowledge management and developing the key skill areas and key performance areas which can be reflected in performance indicators. This way, the employee performance in this area can be monitored and measured. Fourth, HRM should create networks and communities within the organization in order to facilitate learning and sharing at team and group levels. The training programs and events organized by HR department can be of help here. 5. Encourage and support training and interactive learning that occur through work experiences and peer communication. Training programs can be offered to people for revealing, examining and questioning mental models which are unhelpful and support replacement of redundant or unhelpful models with fresh, more effective mental models. Training can also be offered to help people use tacit knowledge and develop their creative talents. At number 6, culture built on trust and commitment is very important for knowledge management. At Ernst & Young, for example, sharing knowledge is part of an employee's performance review and has major impact on salary. Pascarella noted that McKinsey & Company encourages the flow of knowledge and experience its consultants acquire from their clients and researchers. Some organizations award special titles to employees who actively transfer knowledge. These measures celebrate the co-creation and sharing of knowledge, which is possible when employees believe in openness. Openness rests largely on trust and commitment. And at number 7, finally, the routines of the organization should be developed such that the knowledge created is formalized or documented, and documents are made available for others to access. As an administrative expert, HR manager can play an important part in designing the operational systems, even though it may not be its primary responsibility to do so. With this, we are coming to the end of the 28th session. In this session, we explored the processes of learning and knowledge management. We also presented the difference between learning organizations and organizational learning. We discussed how important they are to an organization, how they are related, and what HR managers can do to support learning and knowledge management in the organization. We will see you soon for the next session. Until then, thank you for joining us and goodbye.